From Nutrien Ag Solutions, I'm Senior Meteorologist Andrew Pritchard with your Canadian Prairie weather story for Monday, September 11th, 2023. We're talking about another pretty quiet week. We'll look at the jet stream. We're really looking at the satellite picture, but I'm going to draw the jet stream pattern on it for you. We've got a big area of low pressure here across the Pacific. We've got another little trough sneaking through parts of the upper Midwest. We've got high pressure across the Pacific Northwest, parts of the Canadian Prairie, and that is what's going to keep us really on the dry side and overall on the mild side over the next 7 to 10 days, though we do have a chance for some isolated to scattered shower and storm activity with this disturbance as it makes its way through the prairie over the next 48 hours. As we look at the radar picture here on Monday morning, again, some light shower activity across far southern Manitoba, and again, some scattered light precipitation across far western portions of Canada. This would be British Columbia, not yet making its way into Alberta, though it will, again, over the next 24 to 48 hours in very light, isolated to scattered fashion. Temperatures right now generally in the upper single digits to near 10 degrees. We do have a frontal boundary across parts of southern Manitoba into eastern Saskatchewan, some cooler air moving into the region here over the next day or so. And as we look at the last 3 days of precipitation, it has continued to be a pretty quiet pattern across western Canada with stronger jet stream flow across the Pacific, onshore flow bringing heavy precipitation to coastal Alaska down through British Columbia, but dry across much of the prairie except for these isolated to scattered light rain opportunities. Now, as we look at the next 7 days of precipitation, this is the European ensemble. So this is a very smoothed out look at where the heavier corridors of precipitation will be. And again, they're on the east, west, and southern sides of the Canadian Prairie. Again, what I'm talking about here is that strong onshore flow across British Columbia. We've got heavy precipitation down here across parts of the southern U.S. where we've got that growing influence of El Nino. And then we continue to, where we've got this area of high pressure kind of ebbing and flowing, continuing to impose its will across the Pacific Northwest and British Columbia. We get storm systems that they come in with this stronger flow from the Pacific. They go over the top of the ridge. Then they kind of come in and dive in across the Great Lakes, parts of the eastern U.S., eastern Canada. So we get this split flow, and that gives us drier conditions across this region, even though we get very light precipitation at times working its way in. But we get these heavier corridors to, again, our west, to our south, and then to our east. And that is what's going to continue to be the theme over the next 10 days or so. Here you see it with the 500 millibar height pattern, our 500 millibar height anomalies. You follow the jet stream, again, where the lines are tighter on this map, those thin lines, the tighter they are, the stronger the jet stream flow. So we get this very strong jet stream flow coming around the base of the trough right here. We've got this ridge of high pressure right here, the ridge kind of the axis sticking up into the Canadian Prairie. So that flow comes around the trough, over the top of the ridge, then dives back in and does something like this. So this is where we get that drier pattern. At times, though, shots of cooler air. You see the flow coming out of the north. That's how we get those shots of cooler, drier air, especially across eastern portions of the prairie. As you make your way further to the west, you feel a little bit more of the influence from that ridge. That's why we keep the warmer temperatures in the west. So we animate this, and we really see the same pattern try to just reinforce itself. We see some change. I'll bring this back here to Monday, and I'll leave the drawings on because you see this little system. There's that little trough. That's the one that brings the shower and storm chances here early this week. You can barely see the little ripple in the lines right there before we go right back to the same pattern, right back to the same place here, September 16th, 17th, the coming weekend. So this is a pattern that really continues to kind of fall back into place, this pattern with higher pressure ridging across western Canada. So the precipitation forecast over the next 7+ days really is it's everything happens in the next 48 hours as far as light precipitation across the region. So here's your Monday. Again, some light shower activity tapering off across southern Manitoba. Dry elsewhere through the day today. It's overnight into tomorrow morning. Tuesday morning, we see some very light precipitation making its way into portions of western and central Alberta. Very light rain, maybe a rumble of thunder or two. This area of low pressure fully ejects across the prairie midweek. This is now Wednesday afternoon. You're seeing this very light rain activity making its way into Alberta and far western Saskatchewan. And then this area of low pressure quickly makes its way east across the prairie. This is Wednesday night into Thursday morning. This is midday Thursday, and now by the time we get to, into Friday and the weekend, this low pressure is kind of taking the same path, just kind of dying out and moving off to the east. They either kind of sink into the Great Lakes or they quickly move off to the east with this pattern. The point is they don't linger. When I say though, I'm talking about these areas of low pressure, these storm systems. They don't linger over the prairie, and they don't bring heavy soaking rain. They quickly make their way out. Just that passing, 1 day chance for some light precipitation across the region. Dry again for the weekend, and then we see the same thing early next week. This area of low pressure right now forecast to track well off to the north. This would bring another frontal boundary sweeping through the area, maybe bring another shot of cooler, drier air, and a passing chance for some light rain. We'll look at this a little closer with the NAM model. We'll again just talk about that chance for some rain across southern Alberta through the early part of the day today, drying out, southern Manitoba, dry across the rest of the prairie through the day today. This is your Monday night. This is now sunrise Tuesday morning, Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. This is sunrise Wednesday morning. Light shower activity possible across parts of Alberta and Saskatchewan, then moving into Manitoba late in the day Wednesday into Wednesday night. And then as we get into Thursday, this will be midday Thursday, the area of low pressure beginning to mature and weaken now across the Manitoba-Saskatchewan border. A shot of cooler, drier air making its way in. Those should be blue arrows, bringing in, again, that shot of cooler, dry air on the backside of the storm system late week. Again, not talking about much in the way of thunderstorm activity, and certainly not talking about much in the way of severe weather with this pattern. Again, the precipitation is light, it is isolated in nature, and we are also lacking deep moisture and higher instability. So with these fronts coming through, bringing in shots of cooler and drier air, by the time the next area of low pressure makes its way in, it's not making its way into a hot, muggy, unstable environment across the prairie. Instead, these areas of low pressure are making their way into Western Canada across the prairie, into an environment that is mild, but overall pretty dry, and doesn't have much to work with as far as energy to support thunderstorms. So we get these very light rain events, and this is what I'm talking about. This is your next 4 days of total precipitation as forecast by the NAM on the left, the European on the right. Just about everyone has the chance to pick up some raindrops as we get into Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but not really anyone here seeing a chance for a heavy soaking rain. Just about everyone here with the chance of enough rain to wet the top layer of the soil, maybe keep you out of the field with harvest or harvest prep activities for a day or two before you're likely able to resume activities there as the moisture begins to evaporate. Taking it through the next 10 days with the European model, not much change. Again, the pattern not really evolving much. We do see storm systems tracking through the region, bringing these fronts, the temperatures, I'll show you those continue to have some variety there. We'll see those temperatures rising and falling, very typical late summer, early fall temperature pattern, and then very typical late summer, early fall precipitation pattern across the region as well. Just every few days you get that passing chance for a light shower. Now we're looking at the probability of precipitation here for the next 10 days from the European ensemble model in a different way than I typically show you. Now, instead of looking at the probability of getting a half an inch of rain, we're looking at the probability of not getting a half an inch, of getting a half an inch or less of total precipitation. So where you see the deeper red, that's where it's drier over the next 10 days. And again, the Canadian Prairie, we continue to be a very dry region over the next 10 days. That and the western United States, parts of the northern plains here, just this area of high pressure that continues to reinforce itself, split flow in the jet stream, missing the Pacific Northwest and Western Canada. That keeps us on the drier side. The plus here, we're not doing extended periods of excessive heat. Those temperatures continue to be pretty close to average, if not maybe a few degrees warmer than average. We'll look at those temperatures in just a moment. Let's look at the jet stream winds. Again, watching the same pattern kind of reinforce itself. You see the very active Atlantic here. We've got Hurricane Lee making its way up. Could impact portions of the Atlantic coast way off to the east. That's something we'll have to watch as we get into the weekend and early next week. We could be talking about a Canadian hurricane impact here from Hurricane Lee. But as we talk about prairie weather, we certainly won't be dealing with any of the impacts from Lee. Here you see it. This is the picture here on Monday morning. Very weak jet stream flow across the prairie. We see ridging, in fact, across the region. We see some stronger flow making its way in midweek. This is our midweek storm system making its way through right there. You see the very strong jet stream flow continuing across the Pacific, the North Pacific here, but we do not see a storm system make its way in and kind of park itself right here in what would be the sweet spot to bring in stronger jet stream flow. Instead, it's just off to the north. So again, we saw that potential storm early next week, likely taking a track north of the Prairie. Here's a look at your temperatures. Again, cooler in the east early this week, but we'll start to see temperatures warming up region-wide as we get to the weekend on the backside of our midweek storm system. Of course, with the drier conditions, we continue to see the fire risk be high, especially across southern portions of the Prairie, southern Alberta, southern Saskatchewan, and then really the high fire activity continues off to the north. Now, the good thing with the jet stream flow doing what it's doing here, something like this, we continue to keep that the thicker smoke out of the Prairie, the flow in the jet stream off to the north and to the east, so not seeing a thick concentration in wildfire smoke across the Prairie as we get the week started. Of course, drier conditions continuing deep into the week. We will continue to keep the fire weather conditions pretty constant in the same areas that they have been over the last several weeks. Now here's a look at those temperatures. Again, Calgary cooling off on the backside of our midweek storm system. Ridging takes place though. Warmer, drier conditions return for the weekend. Same look in Edmonton. Very similar in Saskatoon. Again, very typical late summer, early fall pattern. It is on the warmer side, but we continue to see that variety with frontal boundaries making their way in, bringing those shots of cooler air with, ridging and high pressure returning, allowing those temperatures to return to their mild form. Regina, similar look here, and then the same thing in Winnipeg on the cooler side to start the week. Warmer mid to late week, shot of cooler air for the weekend, warming back up over the back half of the weekend into early next week. Again, very typical late summer, early fall pattern continues. I'll talk to you again a week from today.